All right, Shalom, Shalom. First off, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Shakadash. We want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS who have taught us this word and teach us this word today. And want to give a salutation unto the hopeful elect scattered across the four corners of this earth, striving for salvation. This is the brother Yatazakba here with the brother Tazawan. We are brothers from the GMS Nebraska camp. And in this lesson, what we want to get into is covering this recent situation that you have abroad, the within the Navy on the Abraham Lincoln U.S. carrier ship, and it's in the news because there's been reports of terrible living conditions and situations for the soldiers on board the ship. They're saying that they don't have, that they're running low on food. They don't have any hot water. They don't got no, running out of toilet paper, deodorant, essential needs, basic necessities. And, you know, the state of living on the ship is getting so bad for the soldiers to the point where uh, you have soldiers attempting to jump off the ship and off themselves because of how bad things are getting. Not only because of the living condition, but when you think about, these soldiers have been on this ship for months and months, 9 months now. When they were deployed to go on this mission, they were told they'd be out there for 7 months. They've been out there 9 months now, going into the 10th month. And the reason why these soldiers are aboard the ship, the mission that they've been sent out to do is to assist with the war going on with Iran right now, and everything going on with the Middle East. And that has no end in sight. You know, um, Iran isn't backing down, America isn't backing down, and they're not able to come to a conclusion. So who knows how long these soldiers are going to be out there? So imagine that you're on this ship. You haven't seen your family in months. They said that you was only going to be out here half a year, and now you're stuck there, barely able to eat, barely able to take care of yourself. Everywhere you look is just water, in every direction you see, and this ship that these soldiers are on is basically like a prison now, and we wanted to get into it because uh, you know, it's showing that these soldiers are disconnected from the leadership, you know, um, and it's showing the poor leadership of Esau because the same way that Esau is neglecting his own citizens, we see that he's neglecting his soldiers in the same way. Esau got all this money that he has that he can spend on war, yet you have a homelessness epidemic in his own country. Same way, Esau's spending almost $2 trillion on war, but you have soldiers aboard a ship that can't eat well. You got soldiers that can't get a stick of deodorant, you know, and that shouldn't be the case. These are the men that's fighting for you, you know, and um, what's even worse and what's even more wicked about the situation is that you have it that, you know, the people that's in charge, such as Pete Hegseth, when they report on the situation, they're saying, no, everything's fine. Everything that you're hearing about the bad state of living on this ship is fake news. Yet these men is losing their minds. Did you have anything you want to get into?
Nah,
Con. So let's get Sirach chapter 10 verse 3, Babu Shah.
you said 10 and 23.
Verse chapter 10 verse 3.
All right, All right, so we have Sirach chapter 10, verse 3. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the
Mm-hmm.
prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited.
It says an unwise king destroyed his people. And who's at the head of this operation going on in America right now? Trump. The script. He's being an unwise king. The scriptures call him. It says a cruel Lord shall roughly paraphrasing Isaiah 19 and 4, I believe it says a cruel Lord shall rule over Egypt. And going off the spirit, that cruel Lord is Trump. Look at the how much he don't care about the things that's happening to his own citizens. He has time to build a ballroom, to build, you know, a pool, and he's putting all his attention on that. He's putting all that attention on tweeting, but when it comes to the well-being of his people, he's not concerned, you know, and that's showing a lack of leadership. It shows a lack of care for your own people, you know.
And it seems like everything is really just based off of an image, which kind of goes into that propaganda. Because overall, like when he does show all the troops, the ones that are not even deployed yet, most of them are standing tall, they're fit, they don't look hungry, they look all right, they look like they're getting ready to fight. But the ones who are actually fighting are the ones who actually know what's going on. It's
Mhm.
like we don't see pictures of that,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, and when you do have a real situation of people who's hungry, who's hurting, they try to cover it up. They try to act like it's not going on, you know. But this came out though. The truth is out there about this, and you have also not only did you have this situation where soldiers was trying to jump off board the ship, but there's been reports about fighting in the ship. Where soldiers, people have died. Now when you look that up, it says that that's not true. They're saying that there's Iranian sources that's putting that news out there for their own form of propaganda, but not to completely rule out that you know can't be true, because the same way that they were saying that it was false news about the living conditions of the soldiers, and it came out that that's true. So who knows? That could be true, that soldiers is fighting. You know what I'm saying? And people have died, and they're trying to cover that up and act like nothing's going on. Now, as mentioned before, Trump is the leader of this country, but we know that he's uh what he's doing is following the orders of those who are above him, the elites that are above him, and he's doing the bidding of who? These Amalekites, you know? And this is why a lot of these, American, pro-America, like even Edomites are complaining about the state of this country because the leadership is, doing what Israel wants and not, what is in American interest, so to speak. And what it's doing is that it's causing people to, um, be jaded toward the leadership of this country. It's putting people in a seditious mindset. Because like the scriptures talk about in Second Ezra chapter 15, where it talks about where there should be sedition among men. Let's grab that real fast. Bab Kusha. Second Ezra chapter 15, verse 16. It talks about that how there's going to be sedition. And what we're going to see is, you got it.
So 16, 15, and 16.
Second Ezra chapter 15, verse 16.
Kind of got it right here. We got Second Ezra chapter 15, verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the courses of their actions shall stand in their power.
Yeah, so that sedition is basically a rebellion against a government. It's overthrowing the government. It's not listening to the rules, to the laws, and we're gonna get to a point of more escalation to where Americans are fighting against troops that you got these National Guard troops, these ICE agents that's being deployed. We're gonna be seeing Americans fighting against them. We're gonna be seeing Americans fighting against the police. It's gonna get to a more volatile state, but what's gonna lead up to that is a seditious mindset that's going to be um the water boiling up to that point, of that overflow of the pot. And we're already seeing that seditious mindset within the people, and it's been there for decades. America keeps, bringing war after war after war, and you see that people off the, majority of the American population complain about it, and like I was talking to this brother before the lesson, I often hear when soldiers give their testimonies on on, their service, they always, I hear a lot where they say that they don't agree with the politics of the war that they were involved in. They don't agree with the reason why they've been sent out to fight, but they're a soldier doing a job, so they go out and do it anyway, and they just, ignore it. And it's going to get to a point to where soldiers are going to be, leaving their posts. They're going to be, um, following their own will, as the scriptures say. They're going to be in a seditious mindset because they're going to be like, man, I did this ain't why I signed up. This ain't why I signed up to fight for this country, to fight for, Israel. You know, Baba Gashad, can you grab Mark chapter 3, verse 24? And so we're seeing that mindset amongst the people, and this is very telling with what's going on with these soldiers, to where they're losing their morale, and this is just a very blatant story that's right in everybody's face right now. But we don't know how else things are looking within the army. We don't know what the minds, or within the military, the U.S. military. We don't know how else the mindset of these soldiers are looking, to where if they agree with what America is doing or not, or if there's a spirit of revolting brewing, or whatever the case may be. But we see that that spirit is brewing here inside the country. you know I was just going into how with these flock cameras being set up, how you got Americans cutting them down, people speaking out on the internet and things of the sort, and that it's only going to continue to grow. you know but let's grab that real fast, Bakusha.
Says in Mark chapter 3, verse 24, and if a kingdom be divided amongst against itself, that kingdom cannot stand.
Agree, verse 25 as well.
Con. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand.
Yeah, so you have a group of people, and half of them want to do one thing and half of them want to do the other, but they have to move in the same direction. There's going to be strife. There's going to be problems within that. You know, if that a group needs to be unified to walk together. They have to be in the same mind. And what we're seeing is that amongst, amongst Babylon the Great, the minds of the people versus the minds of the leadership is splitting. They're not, agreeing with the way that, the government is moving. And even amongst the people, you have so many schisms and splits, the left and the right, Republicans, Democrats, all the different differences between, the nations in this place, who agrees and disagrees on what. It's a spirit of, you know, just being at odds with each other that the Lord has brewing in this place. And what that's going to do is cause things to, eventually blow up. When society crashes, that's going to add to how much people are going to be at each other's necks, because people are already in a spirit where they don't agree with each other because of differences of opinions, morals, beliefs. And so when the time comes when it's like, when violence arises, this is going to be, reason for people to be fighting against each other, as the scriptures prophesy. You had something
Con.
up?
Yeah, I was about to say, man, people are just stupid. You know, ultimately, it's like you don't. It's so dumb. Like, okay, so you have two separate parties, but you can't tell that they're all trying to reach the same goal. Like,
Hmm.
you've got to be dumb, and it's only because people are so one sided. It's like they don't really they don't get it. Like Megan Thee Stallion supporting Kamala Harris, so she just had her up on stage. It's like, what was the point of that? And then
Hmm.
you got Trump hosting the UFC fights. What was the point of that? To show that we're better or to show black people can rise? Like that was so, in my opinion, that was mad disrespectful to the community in general. But then again, it's like all of this is going on, and it's like you're not realizing you're in the Colosseum. This is what they did during the times of Rome. Like you're in the loop. So for the prophets that are looking outside of the box, and we're just all watching this go down, it's like we kind of see what it's all leading to,
Yeah,
and this is all. This is the elite's plan, you know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, because the like the brother saying, the elites want to bring that chaos. The elites want things to want a state of strife and conflict.
Yeah,
But
and it's causing confusion. You know, we're in Babylon. So it's
hmm
like, what's there not to expect from this place?
hmm like the brother said, us, we're not attached to that American spirit, or we're not attached to when the government is saying one thing versus what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing. We don't care because we're looking forward to the kingdom. We want to see this place crumble. We're not offended when the government is going against the Constitution. It's not like we have our heart in this place, but we acknowledge it because the American people ain't gonna like it, and it's going into biblical prophecy on what is going to be happening in these times. So it's
Yeah,
expected from our perspective.
yeah, and like when you're able to sit back and look at both of it, we're really just trying to like I don't know how to explain it. When you're trying to kind of take the scripture and put it into what's going on, it's like you damn near become Democratic and Republican. It's like, bro, because it's like something's off about both sides. Like both sides want something. Like when they sent billions of dollars out to Brazil to have the Mo contest or like the the Transformer contest. It was like, what
Uh
was the point of that? Like for the condoms and stuff. It was like, what was
yeah,
the point? You could have used that money to go feed people on the streets.
yeah, yeah,
Those were the Democrats, but it's like people are not going to be able to sit back and be like, that's low key dumb as like that's dumb.
yeah, yeah. And what the brothers getting across is that we don't agree with either of these sides. We not, we see things that, the left say, we see things that the right say, and sometimes they say things that's on point, but we're not involved in the politics of this place to where we picking a side and we want, a better future for America. This is how we think America should be. How we think America should be is destroyed at the end of the day, and that's what we're looking forward to, and so yeah, yeah, that's that on that. Let's go to Bible Shah. Let's grab Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2.
Kind of said 29 and 52,
29, verse 2.
verse 2. Kind of we have Proverbs 29, verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn.
Yeah, so the wicked is ruling right now, and the people are mourning. The people are stressed out, because, everybody broke. The people are stressed out because everybody, we all live in this life, you know, and what all the wicked is worried about is them being good. They don't care about the true well-being of the people. As long as they're eating, as long as their pockets are lined, as long as they're getting the things that they want, whatever's happening to the people is, you know, as long as that society continues to run, y'all keep coming to work, y'all keep this money flowing, then that's all that matters to these elites, you know.
And it's like, nah, it's Salakia.
And so and going back to the point we made earlier, it's like Esau is willing to spend all this money on war, on his sword, yet you won't ease the affliction that your citizens is going through. And that's what happens when the wicked beareth rule. You know, so whether it's first and foremost us Israelites, because we're getting the worst of the worst in the society, but all the heathen, even the Edomites that's in the society, this is their world. But the Edomites in America are suffering as well, and they're mourning, they're stressed out, they're depressed, they have anxiety. You know, because of the state of because of the state that this world is in, and more specifically talking about America, Babylon the Great, the state that this country is in. And it's because of the people who are in authority. And this is why this place needs to go. Because it shouldn't be that, in your world, your own people is suffering. That shouldn't be the case at all. In the kingdom, every single Israelite from the top to the bottom within order, everybody's gonna be good. Everybody's gonna be living the most beautiful life. For lack of better words, the Israelite on so-called like the so-called, last of the Israelites is gonna be living so much better than anybody has ever lived on this earth in the kingdom. Because that's the way it should be. When you ruling, your people should be eating, and that's how Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is gonna have it for us. But Esau
Yeah,
is so selfish that he's willing to gut his own people as long as, you know, what you was about to
yeah.
say?
I was just about to say, not only are we gonna be rejoicing, but even the heathen nations, like even though they're gonna get done bad, however we like, but the thing is, even they're gonna be okay. Like
Yeah,
it's gonna be way better than America. Yeah,
except for the Edomites. The
except for
Edomites is going to just get hell the whole 1,000 years that they serve captivity. But the
God,
heathen, like the brother said, they're gonna have to serve captivity as well. They're gonna go through their hardships. But when the kingdom is established and they see the state that the world is in, they're gonna be rejoicing. They're gonna be in a good state of mind because the earth is gonna be, things are gonna be just, things are gonna be fair, the earth is gonna be cleansed, things are gonna be back in this beautified state, fixed from all this corruption and degradation that Esau has brought this earth into, you
God,
know? So yeah, we just want to go into this based off that situation, on that US carrier, shoot that's all I had. Did you have anything else? I
nah, that's all.
kind of console. Hey, with that being said, once again, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh,
Oh,
Bahashem,
yeah,
Abishai, Bahashem,
gosh,
Harkadash. Want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS and salutation to the elect. Shalom.
shalom.